Welcome to Invisible No More podcast, where we stand together as a beacon of hope for those who have served our country and faced unimaginable challenges. I am Shannon Huff, your guide through stories of strength, resilience, and healing. Our mission to empower women who have faced sexual assault in the military, find their voice, reclaim their power, and rebuild their lives. Join us as we share journeys of triumph over trauma, offer support, and shine a light on the path to restoration. Together, we are a Shield of Sisters. Welcome to episode 4 of Shield of Sisters. My name is Shannon Huff, and I have Megan here with me today. We're going to continue talking about our stories of military sexual trauma, of healing, of surviving and thriving. So, Megan, if you would like to just share a little bit about yourself, what you do, what branch you served, when.
Good morning. I am Megan Haag. I am a Sauk Prairie, Wisconsin native, and I own my own clothing company called Soil+Soul Farm Co. This is one of my designs here. It says freedom, and I started back in 2019 as a mommy and me for boys. I didn't have the cute dresses and headbands that girl moms have, and I wanted to match my son, so I started out with graphic tees so we could match. He's 5 now. He still loves matching mom. Aww. Not as often, but it still melts my heart. So I do that. I have my own clothing brand, and then I also do custom apparel for other small businesses, branding, marketing, photography, and then we live on a farm. So I like to say that I bridge the gap between being 5 generations removed from the family farm. And so I educate through social media platforms and just kind of bridge that gap of where our food comes from.
That is awesome. After you got out of the military, did you go right back into like the farming and clothing and?
I did not. So I was in the Wisconsin Air National Guard as a medic. So I was stationed out of Madison, the 115th. And I went in a little later when I was 25. I wanted to make a difference in the community. So I joined the military by taking an EMT class. I wanted to help out in the community. And one of the preceptors in that EMT class had been in the Air National Guard for 16 years and just told me the benefits of it, how great it was. And so it really just wanted to do more for the community. So I went in, I was a medic. I made the typical mistakes they tell you not to do, everything they told you not to do. I'm like, oh, I know better than this. Don't get married in tech school. Don't, do all that. And I thought I could prove that wrong, and it didn't work so well for me. I experienced my trauma while I was in tech school. And then spent a lot of time in the hospital after that. In a 3-month span, I was in the hospital, I think 13 times. And It was just a lot. My body was responding to the trauma. I'm later learning now, 10 years later, how we hold trauma in our body and all the things that can cause, because they weren't able to figure out what was wrong with me. And it was frustrating, and that turned into an addiction. I struggled a couple years with an addiction to narcotics. And so when I got out of the military, I was struggling.
Yeah.
Pretty bad.
You know, I think so often the military likes to throw drugs at us instead of finding real solutions that work. Absolutely. You know, we always joke, about the M&Ms, ibuprofen and whatever else, ibuprofen and Cipacol, the throat lozenges, I think was a huge medical thing we always had back in the early 90s when I was in. 13 times. So you were active at the time. You were.
Yes.
How did the command treat you with that? Did they punish you, or were they
Not
more
well.
understanding?
I was punished, and I would some days have to miss PT or go to the clinic, and they would just think I was trying to skip out of it, which I wasn't. My body was screaming in pain and agony, and I didn't know how to deal with it or how to cope or even understand what was happening.
Yeah. I can totally relate. I didn't go to the doctor a lot, but I decided that if my looks and the way I was caused me to be assaulted, I was going to get as fat as I could. So food became an addiction for me, and I still struggle with it to this day. I feel like the heavier I am, nobody's going to hurt me. They're not going to want to look at a fat girl. It took me 30 years to work through that to the point where I'm now getting ready to have surgery so I can finally get all this weight off, because it's so hard to lose once you put it on. I think the addictions that come after trauma can be so sometimes more impactful and hurtful than the actual trauma itself.
Absolutely.
We turn to alcohol, drugs, food, cutting, whatever. What are some of the ways you worked through your addiction, and how long have you been clean, sober?
So I've been sober since 2017.
Nice.
And some of the things that I found would be spirituality. I didn't really have a faith, I would say. So that's something that's become really strong in my life. Journaling, gratitude practice, affirmations, yoga, hiking, creative art therapy, writing therapy. I kind of have a lot of things in my toolbox that I've found along the way. Gardening, growing flowers, being out in nature.
That's something we talk about at retreats, is finding ways to pick up other things than the weight of the trauma. We carry that weight with us all the time, and we do a thing in the retreats where I'm not going to give it away. I don't want to give it away. We do this exercise, and part of it is to visualize how much easier it is to pick up a journal, how much easier it is to color or cook or walk or whatever, than carrying the weight of that trauma around all the time. It seems very childish what we do, but when I carried this around and did this exercise, I was like, this is stupid. I can't even go to the bathroom with this, what? And so you really start thinking, the weight of our trauma sometimes keeps us in bed, sometimes keeps us from walking out a door because of fear, keeps us eating or drinking, alcohol or drugs or whatever. And the more ways we find to swap that, the better it is. And so the first time I met you and I started looking at your Facebook page and everything, I was like, this girl has it. She experiences trauma. I didn't know your story. I still don't know your story. But I saw a light in you. You talk about all these things on Facebook, and I love that you do all your flowers and gardening. I just think that's amazing. And, I think the more we share things like that with our sisters, the better we can help them find alternatives than the medicine that the military throws at us or the VA throws at us. And don't get me wrong, I think the VA here has been amazing. They've helped me a lot. Not everybody's so lucky. Not all the VA systems are that way. We're actually going to talk to Jody, who is in charge of the women's department for the Wisconsin VA here in a little while. And I'm just so amazed at everything they've done. So, what are your goals, 5-10 years down the road? And what are those, how have those goals changed maybe since you started, practicing all these different ways of therapy?
So my big God-sized goal, long-term goal is a healing sanctuary farm. And I came up with that about 5 or 6 years ago. It just weighed on my heart, and certain things have aligned along the way. Like now we live out on the farm, and I'm kind of living that day to day, every single day on my own healing journey. And I want to create and curate a place for other people to come and enjoy that may not have access to those things, and to get their hands in the soil and to feel the healing and the magic of planting a seed and watching it grow, and just the lessons learned along the way.
Yeah, that's, we garden here at our house. I'm not great at it, but there's something about taking your shoes off and walking through the grass and the dirt, and just, really realizing that there's so many things out there, and there's so much more in life to live for. I mentioned in earlier episodes that, I tried suicide 3 times, and for some reason I'm still here, thank God, and you just get to a point where you don't want to live anymore because the shame and the betrayal and everything is so much that you just don't know what else to do. Another breath isn't worth it. Mm-hmm. And, when I created Shield of Sisters, I felt like if I even just reached one woman and helped her realize that, suicide isn't the answer, drug and alcohol, not the answer. There's other ways to heal and to find restoration, that I would have done my job. And then, whatever else happens in life, I'm good. And I've met people like you and Jody and so many women. And the more stories I hear, it just breaks my heart what our sisters are going through in the military, and it amazes me we're still dealing with this. 30 years ago, I thought I was the only person who'd been assaulted in the military. And now we're like 1 in 3. And that's just the reports, and you go, why is this happening? Why? I know assaults happen in the civilian world, but that's the one place where you just think this shouldn't happen. We're brothers and sisters. They build us up to this team. And I don't know how the Air National Guard does it, but we had this big 1-5 day where they beat you up like crazy that day. And then they play this Proud to Be an American song, and you're like crying and helping each other do push-ups. And then you turn around and you're assaulted. And I was fresh out of tech school, as you all call it. We call it A school in the Navy. I did the same thing, by the way. I married out of tech school. Lasted 5 years. I have 2 beautiful kids because of it. But yeah, not everything my recruiter told me not to do. Oh yeah, I was going to do it. So I think we're already those crazy people who are joining the military, and for whatever reason, and somebody's telling us what to do, which the military is nothing but telling you what to do, right? It's like you follow orders. So what advice would you give to anyone who hasn't reported their trauma, their assault, their harassment? And what would you tell them to do? Like, report, get help? What are some words of advice you could give?
First and foremost, I would say that you need to learn how to advocate for yourself and to find your voice. It's going to be very hard, and there's going to be a lot of factors that are going to try to keep you stuck and to stay small and to not. But once you do, and the healing process can begin, and it's too hard to carry all of that weight.
It is
through life. So you need to learn how to connect with resources. There's so many resources available out there for veterans, women veterans, all the things, art therapy, different things that I mentioned that you can find for your healing toolbox, and to just really learn how to advocate with your providers. They do want to help you, but learning how to navigate that. You don't have to agree with all of your providers. You can challenge and get a second opinion, and you don't always have to accept what they say. So I would say learning how to advocate for yourself and to find that voice.
Yeah, absolutely. When I was there was none of those services. Matter of fact, I was told I couldn't go to counseling because of I had a very high security clearance. I did Intel. And I was told, no, because you'll lose your clearance. And at the time, everything was, you'll go to the fleet and chip paint, being in the Navy, and I wasn't going to hang off the side of the boat and chip paint. That's not, this chick doesn't do that. So I just shut up. And you learn to box it all in and just go on.
Compartmentalize it all.
Yeah. And so when I finally started dealing with it, it was like all this hurt and pain and where did this come from? I hate that there's other women out there like me, that felt like they were the only one, only to find out there's a lot, over 9,000 in Wisconsin that have reported. Those are the ones that have filed claims with the VA.
Okay.
Who knows how many there is. And then you multiply that by 50 states, and it's just mind blowing. And then to think about the ones who haven't reported, who haven't sought help who are just sitting there feeling like they don't want to live another day. And that's heartbreaking, because one, we're just badasses.
Absolutely.
Guys join the military. Yeah, nobody really thinks about that. But when a woman joins the military, we're putting a lot on the line there, where I couldn't even tell you how many times I've been called names and, or my mom didn't talk to me for 2 weeks after I joined. She's like, why did you do that? And I'm like, because I want to serve. I'm a military brat. I was raised a military brat. I want to serve. And she was just so devastated. Well, then my daughter came home and told me she joined the Marine Corps. And my mom goes, yeah, what goes around comes around. And I was brokenhearted because I hadn't told her what happened to me. And I was scared to death that she would experience the same thing. And I was like, all the prayers, like there were so many prayers. I just couldn't even tell you. And I think it's sad that so many people don't want their kids to join now because of the assaults, because of everything going on. And I really hope that people like you and I can be so loud that we don't have to worry about that anymore.
Definitely. And it blows my mind that, we attend those safety briefings every single week about it. And it's like, you just think that it would never happen, but they're briefing you on it and it still is happening and there's no solution or end in sight to it. And it's.
Yeah. Well, that's why I say, even if there was never another assault today, like today on, never another assault, there's still so many thousands of women and men that we have to reach, And I hate that Shield of Sisters has to exist, but I'm so proud of what we've done in the short amount of time we've done it in. That we're doing these retreats, we're doing meetups at your farm. We're doing a great retreat or meetup at your farm in August. And I think it's going to be amazing. And I appreciate the journey that you're on because I think it's a good witness to others on how it can be, We had a retreat a couple weeks ago, and one of the girls was just like, it's hard for me to even leave my house sometimes. But it was so neat to watch the bond. We talk about that bond we have in the military. And I don't know about you or when you served, but women weren't so nice to each other in the military.
No,
it was like there was
so
this
much
competition, And now that we're out, it's like we miss that bond that is there. So, there's so many organizations out there for our brothers and they say we can go too, but it's just not the same.
Right.
So I think the more organizations like Shield of Sisters that comes along, the better, because we're finally going to get our voice.
That's beautiful.
It is, having a voice is huge when you don't sit silent anymore. And, that's one of our hashtags is silent no more, because we just can't be. We can't just sit here in silence and let others suffer anymore. So, what else could you say about your experience and what about it has changed your way of thinking or maybe improved you? What did you take from it that just changed who you are to a point where you're like, I'm so different and I'm glad I'm different because of it? Does that make sense?
Yes. I would say for a short while, I was like stuck in that victim mentality, and it was so liberating to break free from that and realize, no, I'm a fucking badass warrior. Like, I served in the military. I'm a woman, and to not let one thing keep me down and keep me stuck and let it define me. So many times people get so caught in their trauma and their pain they've experienced, and then they can't move forward in life and they stay stuck. Although you're never going to completely heal the trauma and the pain, it's going to be there forever. You can find ways to make it easier to deal with. The PTSD becomes easier to deal with. You have tools to navigate it. And, when you are stuck in those moments, you can feel a little bit better knowing you have those tools.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think I was very naive. I was young. I was stupid. I grew up in a little town in Kentucky. You grew up in a small area in Wisconsin. So we kind of have that in common. I grew up picking worms off tobacco, which is gross. It's no fun. But I think I came out on the other side, not realizing how strong I really was, but something in there kept fighting. We're fighters.
Right.
And when you are able to push through no matter what, and you come out the other side, you look back and go, wow, I survived that. I tell my kids all the time, you got this, you got this, you got this. And I even said that to my daughter a lot in boot camp. Marine Corps boot camp is a whole different. You were Air National Guard. You didn't really even go to boot camp. But, I'm teasing. We have a little bit of service rivalry there. But I would just send her every day a note that just said, you got this. Because I knew she was going through some crazy stuff out there. I mean, she was a bouncy little cheerleader. And she comes, I joined the Marine Corps today. I was like, no, you didn't. Have you sworn in twice? And she said, no. And I said, then you haven't joined yet. We're good. And then my husband swore her in. And I was like, no. Why did you do that to my daughter? And he's like, well, she's my daughter too. But, we were proud. And I was just, like I said, I was every day just praying she would pull through everything that I knew was going to be thrown her way. And, I pray for all of our sisters that are in the military that just every day they know they've got this. And our lady veterans, sister veterans that are out there that don't know there's, women out there that are really pulling for them and saying, hey, you got this. You can do this. And so I thank you for sharing, what you've shared with us and how amazing your journey has been. I know when I asked you what you wanted to talk about, you were like peace and gratitude and overcoming addiction. I was like, that's awesome. That's great. And so I think what I like about our podcast is, we do everything from telling our stories and how horrific they are. We've cried so far. 4 episodes in, I've cried a couple times, cried at my own story. But I like hearing the optimism, and there's so much hope. So I thank you for joining me today. We're going to wrap up this episode and, just understand that Shield of Sisters is here for you. And thank you for your support for Shield of Sisters. And thank everyone for listening today. If you've experienced any trauma and you haven't sought help, if you're dealing with addiction, there's always resources out there that can help you. And, look for the peaceful side of the trauma and find the journey that is this healing and full of restoration. So we thank you for your support, and we'll see you on our next episode. Thank you to all the members of Shield of Sisters Founder Circle. Superbio, we appreciate your continued support. If you are interested in joining our Founder Circle, please visit our website at www.shieldofsisters.org or call Shannon at 608-344-0210.